You know how your AI assistant is pretty good at, say, answering a question or setting a timer? But have you ever wished you could just hand it a massive project and say, go figure it out? Well, in this explainer, we're diving into a framework that aims to make that a reality, to move AI beyond being just a simple assistant and into a world of agents that can actually delegate, coordinate, and get big things done.
So, if this is the dream, why aren't we there yet? I mean, AIs are incredibly powerful. The thing is, when you give them a complex, real-world objective, they just hit a wall. And it turns out it's not really a problem of raw intelligence. It's a problem of coordination. Let's break down what that really means.
So this is the big question, right? Why is there this huge gap between what we feel AIs could do and what it actually does? It's not that the AI isn't smart enough. The real challenge is getting it to break down a huge goal into smaller pieces, hand those pieces off to other AIs, and then make sure it all comes together correctly, especially when things inevitably go wrong. Here's a good way to think about it. Today's AI is kind of like a super smart calculator. You give it a very specific problem, and wow, it gives you a brilliant answer. But that's where it stops. The future we're talking about is totally different. It's more like having an autonomous team, a whole crew of specialized agents that can manage a project from the very start to the very end.
And this right here gets to the heart of why current systems fail. The way they delegate is, well, it's brittle, like glass. It's built on these simple, rigid rules. The moment something unexpected happens, an error, a change of plans, the whole thing can just shatter. And for any kind of important real-world job, that's just not going to cut it.
Okay, so to build something that doesn't break, we have to start thinking about delegation in a totally new way. It's not just about splitting up a to-do list. If we look at how the best human organizations work, we realize that real delegation is so much richer and more complex than that. And that brings us to this core idea: intelligent delegation. See, it's not just a technical problem to be solved with code. It's an organizational one. It means you're not just handing over a task, you're also handing over the authority to get it done, the responsibility for the quality of the work, and accountability for the final outcome. And all of that has to be built on a foundation of genuine trust.
Now, this brings up a classic idea from economics called the principal-agent problem. In plain English, what happens when the person, or AI, you delegate a task to has its own agenda? For an AI, this isn't about some secret evil plan. It's about something called reward hacking, where the AI finds a clever shortcut to hit a target in a way you never intended, sometimes with really weird or even disastrous results.
And building on that, we run into another classic management headache: span of control. You know this from the real world, right? One manager can only keep tabs on so many people before things start to fall through the cracks. Well, for a future economy run by AIs, we have to solve this. How many AI agents can a single human, or even another AI, actually manage without being completely overwhelmed?
This next one is honestly a little unsettling because it's so human. It's called the authority gradient. Think about it. A junior doctor sees a senior surgeon about to make a mistake, but they're too intimidated to speak up. Well, guess what? An AI could do the exact same thing, blindly following a bad instruction from a more senior AI or even a human, just because it's wired to follow orders.
Okay, so we've got all these very human-like challenges: trust, control, authority. How in the world do you build a system you can actually depend on? Well, let's get into the proposed solution, a technical framework designed to make this whole idea of intelligent delegation safe, scalable, and tough enough for the real world.
This framework is really built on 5 big ideas. First, you've got dynamic assessment, basically always knowing what every agent is good at in real time. Second is adaptive execution, which is just a fancy way of saying the system can change its plan on the fly when things go wrong. Third, structural transparency, so we can always look under the hood and see exactly what happened. Fourth, a scalable market, which is a system for agents to find and bid on jobs efficiently. And finally, systemic resilience, which is all about building in security from the ground up to protect the whole network. All right, let's trace how this actually works. Look at the flowchart here. It all kicks off with a big, high-level goal. The very first step is task decomposition. The system breaks that big goal down into smaller, bite-sized subtasks. And here's the key. Every single one of those subtasks has to be verifiable. We need a way to prove it was done right. Then we move to task assignment, where the system finds the perfect agent for each little job, usually through something like a bidding process.
But of course, the real world is messy. Things go wrong. And that's where this adaptive coordination cycle comes in.
As you can see in this diagram, the system is always on the lookout for triggers. An error pops up, priorities change, a resource disappears. When that happens, the system immediately diagnoses the problem and figures out the best way to respond, whether that's finding a new agent, changing the plan, or flagging the problem for a human to look at.
Now, this next piece is probably the absolute cornerstone of trust for this entire system. It's called verifiable completion. Think of it as the system's built-in lie detector. It is not enough for an AI agent to just say, "Yep, I'm done." No way. It has to provide cold, hard proof, like cryptographic data or the results of an automated test, that proves the work is done and done correctly. This is what makes real accountability possible.
So, creating a world buzzing with autonomous agents, trading tasks and value, it sounds incredible, but it also opens up a whole new Pandora's box of risks. And we really need to understand what could go wrong before we build this stuff at scale.
And these threats are no joke. They can come from anywhere. You could have a malicious agent that bids on a job just so it can steal your data. Or you could have a malicious person trying to use the system to jailbreak an AI. And then you have the big ones, ecosystem-level threats, like an agentic virus that could spread through the entire network like wildfire.
But there's another risk, one that's a lot more subtle, but potentially even more dangerous. It's this concept of a cognitive monoculture. Imagine if almost every agent in this new economy is built on just one or two big AI models. That means they all think the same way, and that creates a gigantic, fragile single point of failure. One bug, one vulnerability, could take down the whole system.
I mean, just pause and think about that for a second. What happens when every AI shares the same biases, the same blind spots, the same weaknesses? Suddenly, diversity in our AI models isn't just a nice to have. It becomes absolutely essential for creating a safe and stable agent economy.
So let's zoom out and look at the big picture here. This framework isn't just some abstract technical paper. It's a potential blueprint for what our global economy could look like in the future. An economy mediated by millions, maybe billions of specialized AIs all working together.
And this really gets to the most important point of all. The end goal here isn't just automation for the sake of automation. It's about building a system that is fundamentally, deeply tethered to human intent and our shared values. A system that isn't just efficient, but one that's also transparent, accountable, and aligned with what we want for society.
Which leaves us with one final massive question to chew on. As we start to hand over more and more of our complex work to these incredibly intelligent systems, what does that mean for us? What is our role? Maybe we shift from being the ones who do the work to being the ones who set the vision, the architects, the overseers, and maybe the moral compass for this entirely new kind of economy. What do you think that future really looks like?